Welcome to our deep dive, and today we're cracking open Negotiating for Dummies, second edition by Michael C. Donaldson.
You know, it's wild how many people think negotiation is only for like boardrooms and super high-stakes deals.
Right.
But actually, we're negotiating all the time. Deciding where to eat with your partner, advocating for yourself at work.
Like you're negotiating right now to get the last slice of pizza.
Exactly.
This book really shines at making negotiation easy to understand for anyone.
It does.
Okay, so the book says there are 6 core skills: preparation, setting limits and goals, listening, clear communication, knowing when to pause, and closing the deal.
Sounds simple enough, right?
Totally. But I'm guessing it gets more complex.
It does. The devil's in the details. But that's what's so great about this book.
Yeah.
It's full of practical tips, examples, and even how to read body language.
Ooh, body language.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that.
Definitely.
But first, I got to say, the book starts off with something I did not expect.
What's that?
Envisioning your 3-year plan and creating a personal mission statement.
That is not what I was expecting from Negotiating for Dummies.
Me neither.
It's like, whoa, hold on. Before you even think about negotiating, you need to figure out what you actually want out of life.
Damn. Deep.
Right. This self-reflection is super important.
Okay, why?
It helps you know what you value and what your priorities are.
I see.
Donaldson has this example of a woman trying to buy a car. She was so overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah. So many options.
Until she figured out what she needed based on her lifestyle and goals.
So it's like having a compass.
Yes. A personal compass that guides your choices in any negotiation.
So that's where the 3-year plan comes in.
Exactly. It's your roadmap.
Makes sense.
It helps you decide if that job offer or whatever actually aligns with your long-term goals.
So you don't just jump at the first thing that comes along.
Exactly. It's about being intentional, not just reacting.
I can see how that connects to intentional living and those goal-setting apps.
Oh, totally. People want direction. They want purpose.
Like a trend.
It is. And this proactive approach is essential for negotiating well.
You're in the driver's seat.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got our compass. We're clear on where we want to be in 3 years. What's next?
Once you know what you want, you got to set clear goals and limits for the specific negotiation.
Got it.
And Donaldson doesn't mess around here. He says, if you don't achieve your objective, someone will cut off your hand.
Whoa, intense.
Right. But you get the point.
Yeah, be serious about your goals. No wishy-washy stuff.
Well, you got to commit.
He's big on commitment.
He is. He says successful negotiators are decisive and they go after their goals.
But that doesn't mean being inflexible. Right?
Of course not.
He talks about involving your team.
Yes, even the grumpy ones.
Everyone.
It's about working together.
And collaboration.
Yes. He tells this story about a woman whose coworker was always late with reports.
Ooh, I've been there.
It turned out that involving him in setting deadlines actually helped.
Really?
Yeah, who knew?
So it made him feel more responsible.
Exactly. It's about empowering people.
Even the grumpy ones.
Even the grumpy ones.
And I love it. And speaking of thinking outside the box, remember that 9-dot puzzle?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
You have to connect all the dots?
With 4 straight lines without lifting your pen.
Exactly. And it seems impossible.
Until you realize you have to go outside the box.
Literally.
It's a reminder to break free from conventional thinking.
So we've set our goals. We're feeling super motivated.
Yes.
But now it's time to talk limits.
Uh-oh, the dreaded L word.
I know, right? So many people hate saying no.
It's tough.
Especially if you have that scarcity mindset, like there's not enough to go around.
Donaldson's all about abundance.
Abundance.
Believing there are plenty of opportunities out there.
I like that.
It makes it easier to walk away from a bad deal.
So you don't feel desperate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He has this crazy story about a tenant who tried to extort money from a film crew.
No way.
They were shooting on location, and this guy saw all the money they were spending.
And he wanted a piece of the pie.
Yeah. But Donaldson's client held firm.
Good for him.
He knew giving in would be bad for business.
It's about having boundaries.
It is. And those boundaries protect you.
And setting limits isn't just for big deals, right?
No, it's for everyday stuff, too.
Like dealing with that chatty neighbor who traps you at the mailbox?
Oh, yeah, I know that neighbor.
We all do. What does Donaldson say to do?
Write down your limits.
Okay, so you're prepared.
Exactly. It helps you stay strong in the moment.
Like a personal policy statement.
I like that.
All right, so we've got self-awareness, goals, and limits.
The groundwork.
Now it's time for the actual communication part of negotiation.
Let's get talking.
And guess what? Donaldson has a whole chapter on listening.
Listening?
Really listening.
Oh, I guess that is important.
You'd be surprised how many people forget that part.
True.
I have to admit, as someone who loves to talk, this chapter was eye-opening.
Uh-huh. We've all been there.
Negotiation is a two-way street.
It is.
It's not just about making your point. It's about understanding the other person.
Their perspective, their motivations.
Everything. And Donaldson lays out 6 barriers to good listening.
6. Okay, go.
Defense mechanisms, low self-confidence, energy drag, habit, preconceptions,
Got it.
and underestimating others.
Each one can totally wreck a negotiation.
They can.
And like preconceptions, they make you ignore info that doesn't fit your beliefs.
You just tune it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And underestimating others makes you miss important insights.
It's like that saying, when you assume.
You make an ASS out of you and A.
Exactly.
So true.
So how do we get past these barriers?
Donaldson has some great tips.
Lay it on me.
First, clear the clutter, both physical and mental.
Declutter your mind.
Exactly. He also suggests the tickle it out method.
Tickle it out. What's that?
Asking probing questions to get more info.
Oh, like being a detective.
Yes, like Lieutenant Columbo.
Oh, I love Columbo.
He was a master at asking seemingly innocent questions.
That revealed crucial details.
Exactly. And speaking of movies, remember Milton from Office Space?
Oh yeah, the stapler guy.
Always getting moved around.
Donaldson uses him to show how clutter messes with communication.
A cluttered space equals a cluttered mind.
And that goes for both the listener and the speaker.
You got to create a clear space to be heard.
So tickle it out, clear clutter, and, of course, paraphrase and ask open-ended questions.
All key tools for being a better listener.
But here's where it gets juicy. Body language.
Yes, the unspoken language.
And Donaldson dedicates a whole chapter to it.
He dives into spatial relationships, those invisible zones around us.
Like personal space.
Exactly. He talks about intimate, personal, social, and public distances.
So there's a whole science to it.
There is. It helps you read how comfortable the other person is.
So you can adjust your own behavior.
Exactly. He uses this great story about taking his daughters to Yosemite. They saw some deer, and as the girls got closer, the deer backed away.
Keeping their distance.
Maintaining that personal space.
Even animals do it.
They do. And in negotiation, this awareness can stop you from seeming too aggressive.
Or too distant.
Exactly. You got to find that sweet spot where everyone's comfortable.
So it's not just about invading someone's bubble.
No, it's about understanding how physical space affects the conversation.
And beyond personal space, there's a whole world of body language cues.
Clenched fist, crossed arms, leaning forward.
It's like a secret code.
It is, but Donaldson says to be careful about jumping to conclusions.
Just because someone crosses their arms?
Doesn't always mean they're closed off.
Context is key.
Always. He tells the story about a radio syndication negotiation.
Oh yeah, that one went on forever.
He was seeing positive body language, but the deal kept stalling.
It was frustrating.
It turned out there were hidden factors he couldn't see.
So you got to be a detective.
Piecing together the clues from both verbal and nonverbal communication.
I love that. And speaking of clues, let's talk about your inner voice.
Our intuition.
Exactly. That gut feeling that can guide you.
I'm a big believer in trusting your gut.
Donaldson is too. He even quotes Shakespeare. This, above all, to thy own self be true.
It's about trusting your instincts.
And he explains the science behind it, how the conscious and subconscious mind work together.
It's like how dreams work, processing info we're not aware of.
So cool. He also talks about different types of decision makers. Charismatics, thinkers, skeptics, and followers.
It's about knowing your own style and how it affects your negotiation.
And he says your inner voice can be a warning system.
Especially when it comes to trusting the other person.
He shares that story about those radio talk show hosts again.
The ones with the bad syndication deal.
Yeah, their gut feeling was telling them something was off.
Even though everything seemed fine on the surface.
And it turns out they were right. There were hidden clauses in the contract.
Wow, so trusting your gut literally saved their careers.
It did. It's about paying attention to those feelings.
And not dismissing them as just nerves.
Okay, so we've covered listening, body language, and intuition.
The subtle stuff.
Now let's get back to basics. Clarity.
Yes. Telling it like it is, as Donaldson puts it.
Clarity builds trust, avoids confusion.
It's essential.
And he points out some common traps that can muddy the waters.
Like what?
Wanting to be liked, fear of hurting others, lack of preparation,
Those are big ones.
and poor organizational skills.
They all lead to vague language and mixed messages,
It's like that game telephone,
where you whisper a phrase and it gets all messed up.
and it always ends in a hilarious gibberish.
But in negotiation, that kind of miscommunication can be serious.
So how do we avoid it?
Donaldson gives some great tips. Organize info like a news story, use visuals, ditch the jargon.
Keep it simple.
Exactly. Make sure your message is clear and easy to digest.
And a key part of clarity is setting clear expectations.
Especially when you're delegating tasks.
You don't want any room for misunderstanding.
Exactly. This is where maneuvering room comes in.
What's that?
Giving enough info to guide someone, but not being too controlling.
Finding that balance.
Exactly. So everyone's on the same page, but there's still room for creativity.
Okay, now for a real-world question. Have you ever worked with someone who just drives you crazy?
Is that a rhetorical question?
You know, that person who makes every interaction a struggle.
We all have.
Well, Donaldson has advice for dealing with difficult people.
Oh, good. I need this.
He calls them the 7 deadly sins of negotiation.
7. Okay, I'm all ears.
He breaks down all the types. Bullies, stars, know-it-alls, arguers, passive-aggressive people, backstabbers.
Okay, that covers pretty much everyone I've ever worked with.
It's like a field guide to difficult personalities.
I need to print this chapter out.
And he gives specific strategies for each one.
For example?
With bullies, set firm boundaries, use assertive language.
No more letting them walk all over you.
Exactly. With passive-aggressive people, be super clear in your instructions.
Leave no room for interpretation.
He even tells a funny story about getting starstruck.
Starstruck.
He met someone he admired and was totally speechless.
Oh, that's kind of cute.
It just shows that even pros can get thrown off balance.
We're all human.
So recognize those difficult personalities. Have a plan, stay calm, and be assertive.
Got it.
Now, let's talk about one of the most powerful tools. The pause button.
Taking a break.
More than that, it's about managing your emotions.
Avoiding those impulsive reactions.
Have you ever said something you instantly regretted?
In a negotiation. Oh yeah, all the time.
The pause button is the solution.
Hit the brakes.
Donaldson uses hostage negotiations as an example.
Hostage negotiations. That's intense.
There's always a support team to keep the lead negotiator calm.
So they don't make any rash decisions.
Exactly. That team acts as the pause button.
Like an emotional bodyguard.
I like that. And Donaldson gives techniques for pushing that button.
Like what?
Deep breaths, counting to 10, literally walking away.
Sometimes you just need a minute.
He tells a great story about a film negotiation where tempers flared.
Uh-oh.
His client was ready to walk away.
But he talked him down.
He reminded him to pause, take a break, and come back with a clear head.
And it worked.
It saved the deal. Taking a moment to collect yourself can make all the difference.
It's about staying calm and in control.
Exactly. So you can be assertive and composed.
Powerful combination.
And speaking of power, let's move on to closing the deal with confidence.
Time to seal the deal.
This is where all those skills come together. Prep, goals, listening, communication, emotional intelligence.
The whole package.
And Donaldson says closing is a skill in itself.
I believe it.
A lot of people struggle with it.
It can be intimidating.
He talks about good deals, bad deals, and those win-win situations.
The holy grail of negotiation.
And he says it's important to recognize when it's time to close.
How do you know?
He suggests phrases like, if we can agree on this one point, can we close the deal today?
Feeling the momentum.
Exactly. And he covers the legal side too. Offers, counteroffers, contracts.
Making it official.
And he gives tips for handling those common objections.
Like last-minute requests.
And the fear of commitment.
We've all been there.
He emphasizes closing with enthusiasm and genuineness.
So it feels good for everyone.
It's not about pressuring anyone.
More like a shared excitement.
He uses this example about a film contract, defining net profits.
Sounds complicated.
It could have been, but he kept it simple and clear.
I like that.
It just goes to show that simplicity is powerful.
Especially when you're finalizing an agreement.
So, know your worth, be willing to walk away, and recognize a good deal when you see it.
That's closing in a nutshell.
But what happens when things go wrong? When the deal falls apart?
Uh-oh. Yeah, nobody wants that.
Donaldson talks about those tough situations too.
Okay.
He outlines why deals fail. Dirty tricks, changing positions, unreasonable demands.
And sometimes just bad luck.
He stresses knowing when to walk away.
Sometimes it's the best option.
Accepting that not every negotiation will work out.
It's hard to let go.
He tells this story about a sailboat race.
A sailboat race?
The lead boat capsized right before the finish line.
Oh, no.
It's a metaphor for how unexpected obstacles can pop up.
Even when you're close to winning.
So you need a backup plan. Be ready to adjust.
Makes sense.
And if a deal does fall apart, he gives tips for starting over.
Like what?
Reflect on what happened. Prepare even better next time. Rebuild trust.
It's about learning from your mistakes.
And approaching the next negotiation with more wisdom and resilience.
I like that.
Donaldson also talks about blind negotiating.
Blind negotiating.
When you can't meet face-to-face.
Like over the phone or email.
Exactly. He gives tips for those situations too.
Let's hear them.
For phone calls.
Sure.
Get past gatekeepers. Use the right equipment. Create a formal atmosphere. Pay attention to vocal cues.
So even though you're not there in person, you still create that professional vibe.
Exactly. And for emails. Be clear, concise, professional.
No emojis. Right.
And always proofread carefully.
You don't want to send a sloppy email.
It's about making a good impression, even digitally.
Makes sense.
As we've been talking, it's clear Donaldson sees negotiation as a whole process.
It's not just about winning.
It's about understanding people, communicating well, building relationships.
And those skills are valuable everywhere, not just in business.
He even talks about negotiating with kids.
Oh yeah, that can be tough.
He says to use the same principles. Prep, goals, listening, communication, emotional intelligence.
So you're always negotiating no matter who you're talking to.
It's about approaching every interaction with thought and intention.
I like that.
And that brings us back to something we touched on earlier, the power of silence.
Ah, yes. That strategic pause.
It's something Donaldson weaves throughout the book.
Even though he doesn't have a whole chapter on it.
It's embedded in the discussions about listening, body language, intuition.
It's like he's saying that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not talk.
Exactly. It takes discipline to hold back, to let the other person speak.
But by doing so, you create space for them to share their thoughts.
And that's where the magic happens.
The aha moments.
So as you go out and negotiate in your life, remember that strategic pause.
Embrace the silence.
You might be surprised by what you discover.
About yourself and the other person.
Negotiating for Dummies is a great resource.
It is. But it's that subtle art of silence that can really take your skills to the next level.
It's about mastering those unspoken dynamics.
The dance between assertion and receptivity, action and stillness.
It's about becoming a master communicator with your words and your presence.
Powerful stuff.
So if you're ready to master negotiation,
check out Negotiating for Dummies, 2nd edition by Michael C. Donaldson.
you can find it on Amazon, link in the description.
And don't forget to subscribe to One Book a Day on YouTube.
For more deep dives into books that can change your life.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. It's cool how Donaldson goes beyond just the steps of negotiating and talks about the traits that make a great negotiator.
You mean like what kind of person you are at the table?
Yeah, like your personality.
Makes sense. It's not just about tactics.
Right. He lists 10 key traits that set top negotiators apart.
Ooh, top 10. I'm ready.
Okay, first up,
Honesty. Seems kind of basic.
You'd think so, but it can be tough when things get intense.
It's tempting to, bend the truth a little.
Exactly. But Donaldson says honesty is key.
And have you seen that play out in real life, where being honest actually helped?
Oh yeah, all the time. I had this client who was tempted to downplay some risks in a project.
Risky move.
I know. But I told him to be upfront, and you know what?
What happened?
The other party appreciated it. They were actually more willing to work with him because of his honesty.
So it built trust.
It did. And that led to a stronger partnership.
Honesty, the secret weapon.
Right. And Donaldson says it's not just ethical, it's more effective in the long run.
Because if you get caught in a lie, it's game over.
Trust is gone, negotiation's probably dead.
So honesty is the foundation.
It is.
What else we got?
Next up, trustworthiness.
Okay, so being reliable.
Keeping your promises, following through.
Building that reputation.
Exactly. Donaldson has this crazy example about a thief.
A thief.
Yeah. A notorious thief who's known for always keeping his word.
So even criminals value trustworthiness.
It's kind of funny, but it proves the point.
You got to be someone people can rely on.
No matter what business you're in.
Okay, honesty, trustworthiness. What's next?
Fairness.
Fairness, so a good deal for everyone.
Exactly. It's not about taking advantage of the other side.
It's about finding a win-win.
Exactly. But Donaldson points out that fairness doesn't always mean equal treatment.
Interesting.
He compares it to parenting. What's fair for one kid might not be fair for another.
So it's about taking individual needs into account.
Exactly. Tailoring your approach to the situation.
Makes sense. So we've got honesty, trustworthiness, fairness.
And next up, Flexibility?
Ooh, being able to adapt.
Super important in negotiations.
Because things don't always go according to plan.
Never. He tells this story about a film producer who had to change locations at the last minute.
Because of weather.
Yeah, bad weather, and his ability to adjust saved the whole production.
Wow, quick thinking.
You got to be able to roll with the punches.
So, honesty, trustworthiness, fairness, flexibility.
We're on a roll.
What's next?
Preparation.
Preparation. That seems obvious.
It does, but you wouldn't believe how many people skip this step.
Really? It's like showing up for a test without studying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about knowing your stuff.
It's about knowing the other person, too.
Your perspective, their goals, their motivations.
To be interesting. Be interested.
I love that. Show genuine curiosity.
So preparation is key, along with good listening.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that.
But Donaldson also emphasizes clear communication.
Being able to explain your ideas well.
Exactly. It builds trust, avoids confusion.
He gives some good tips for that, too, like organizing info, like a news story.
Keep it structured.
Use visuals, ditch the jargon.
Make it easy to understand.
And here's a fun one. He says humor is important.
Humor. In negotiation.
Not like telling knock-knock jokes.
Yeah.
But finding moments of levity, building rapport.
It can lighten the mood.
Exactly. He tells the story about a tense negotiation that was saved by a well-timed joke.
A joke. That's amazing.
It broke the tension and made everyone more collaborative.
It's like a pressure valve.
It is. So remember to bring your sense of humor to the table.
Okay, we've covered honesty, trustworthiness, fairness, flexibility, preparation, good listening, clear communication, and humor.
Quite a list.
We're almost there. What are the last two traits?
Self-discipline.
Keeping those emotions in check.
That's it. Controlling your impulses, like hitting that pause button.
But even more than that, it's about having that inner strength to stay calm.
Even when things get crazy.
That's emotional intelligence.
Exactly. Knowing yourself and how your emotions affect you.
Because if you let your emotions take over,
you're going to make bad decisions.
So self-discipline is crucial.
It is. And last but not least, stamina.
Stamina. Like running a marathon.
Haha, kind of. Some negotiations can go on forever.
Oh yeah, I've been in those.
You gotta have the energy and endurance to see it through.
Pace yourself. Conserve your energy.
Exactly. Like a marathon, it's a mental and emotional challenge.
So Donaldson's 10 traits are honesty, trustworthiness, fairness, flexibility, preparation, good listening, clear communication, humor, self-discipline, and stamina.
That's the recipe for a top negotiator.
It's not just about skills. It's about who you are.
It's about character.
I like that. It reminds me of that Lincoln quote. Character is like a tree and reputation like its shadow.
The shadow is what we think of it. The tree is the real thing.
Donaldson's saying that good character is the foundation.
It is. And those qualities will help you in all areas of life, not just negotiation.
So true. Now, Donaldson also talks about specific situations where negotiation skills are super important.
He calls them the 10 key negotiations of your life.
Ooh, I like that.
It's cool how he applies these principles to real-life stuff.
Like what?
Asking for a raise, buying a used car, dealing with a divorce settlement.
Those are biggies. Let's start with asking for a raise. That's always nerve-wracking.
It is. And Donaldson says prep is everything.
So more than just walking in and saying, I want more money.
Much more. Know your worth, do your research, and be ready to explain why you deserve that raise.
Show them what you've accomplished.
Exactly. And don't forget the pause button.
If they need time to think.
Give them space. Be patient.
And when it comes to closing the deal,
be clear about what you want, your salary, your benefits.
Don't be afraid to negotiate.
Exactly. Okay, let's talk used cars.
Used cars, that's a whole other beast.
It can be, but Donaldson's got some good tips.
Hit me.
First, do your research. Know what kind of car you want. Check prices. Be aware of those sneaky dealer tricks.
So you don't get played.
Exactly. He also says not to fall in love with any specific car until you've got the deal.
Because you get emotionally attached and overpay.
It happens all the time. Set your limits. Stick to your budget.
And don't forget to get a mechanic to check it out.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
It's an extra cost, but it can save you a lot of trouble later.
Totally worth it.
Okay, now for a tough one. Divorce settlements.
Yeah. This is where all those soft skills really come into play.
Self-awareness, communication, emotional intelligence.
Donaldson says to get a lawyer, make sure your rights are protected.
And always keep the kid's best interests in mind.
Absolutely. And use that pause button a lot.
Because things can get heated.
It's a stressful situation.
Take breaks. Avoid those rash decisions.
Stay calm, even when it's hard.
And when it's time to close,
be clear about your priorities and be willing to compromise on the smaller stuff.
find a solution that works for everyone.
Exactly. It's about moving forward.
So we've covered raises, cars, divorces.
Just a few examples.
Donaldson also talks about buying a house, planning a wedding.
Even negotiating with your kids.
He really covers it all.
Negotiating for Dummies is a great resource for all kinds of life situations.
It's about feeling empowered, not overwhelmed.
Exactly. Now, one thing I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Donaldson focuses on face-to-face negotiation.
Right.
But these days, so much happens online.
Phone calls, email.
Exactly. Blind negotiations.
He does give some tips for those.
But it's a whole different ballgame.
It is. Let's dive into that world.
Okay, let's do it. So, with phone calls, one of the toughest things is getting past those gatekeepers.
The assistants who protect their bosses.
Like trying to break into Fort Knox.
Seriously. Donaldson has some advice for that.
What does he say?
Be respectful. Explain your purpose. Highlight your value.
Don't treat the gatekeepers like the enemy.
They're just doing their job.
Exactly. And once you're through to the decision maker,
You got to create that formal atmosphere, even though you're not there in person.
no pajamas and coffee mugs.
Right.
Yeah.
Set aside time, eliminate distractions, be professional.
It shows you're serious.
And since you can't see body language,
You got to pay extra attention to vocal cues.
tone of voice, pauses, all that.
You can learn a lot from how someone sounds.
Donaldson even gives phrases to use like, I hear a change in tone. Is everything okay?
Showing that you're picking up on those subtle signals.
Now, email is a whole other challenge,
It is.
Donaldson says. Clarity, conciseness, professionalism.
Keep it short, sweet, and to the point.
Organize your thoughts. Use bullet points. Avoid jargon.
Make it easy to read.
And proofread. Always proofread.
No typos.
It's about putting your best foot forward, even in writing.
But beyond those basics, I think it's worth thinking about the unique challenges of blind negotiation.
Like what?
Well, in person, you can build rapport with body language, smiles, all that.
You create that connection.
But online, you have to build trust through your words alone.
It's a different kind of communication.
You got to be super aware of your tone and how your words might be interpreted.
It's easy for things to get lost in translation.
Exactly. Be extra clear, confirm understanding, avoid making assumptions.
And you know what? Sometimes blind negotiation can actually be an advantage.
Really? How so?
You can maintain more emotional distance.
It's easier to stay objective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's easier to hit that pause button.
You can step away from the computer, take a breather.
And you have more time to think about your responses.
So you can be more strategic.
Exactly. So blind negotiation has its own set of challenges.
But also opportunities.
It's about adapting your skills to the digital world.
Donaldson gives us a good foundation.
But we got to keep learning and evolving.
Because communication is always changing.
It's like learning a new language.
The language of digital diplomacy.
I like that.
Mastering tone, pacing, word choice, building trust online.
And remembering those core principles. Prep, goals, listening, communication, emotional intelligence.
Bringing your A game to every interaction.
Whether it's virtual or in person.
Well said.
You know, it's fascinating how Negotiating for Dummies highlights those soft skills, like emotional intelligence.
Yeah, building rapport, that kind of thing.
It's not just about being tough and making demands.
Exactly. And one of the most surprising things Donaldson talks about is silence.
Silence? You mean like just not talking?
Well, it's more than that. It's about that strategic pause, that moment of stillness.
It's interesting because he doesn't have a whole chapter on it.
No, but it comes up again and again.
It's woven into the discussions about listening, body language, trusting your gut.
Like it's this underlying principle.
And it's powerful. Sometimes the most powerful move is to say nothing at all.
It's true. It can be hard, though, to resist that urge to fill the silence.
It takes discipline, for sure.
But when you do hold back, you give the other person space to speak.
To really share what's on their mind.
And that's when you can gain those valuable insights.
You can read between the lines, pick up on those unspoken cues.
You start to understand their perspective on a deeper level.
It creates a connection, a real understanding.
It's like silence becomes this catalyst for breakthroughs.
It's amazing. So for anyone out there who wants to be a better negotiator,
remember that power of silence.
Embrace those moments of stillness. Use them to observe, reflect, listen deeply.
You might be surprised by what you learn, both about yourself and the other person.
Negotiating for Dummies has a ton of great advice.
It does.
But it's that mastery of silence that can really set you apart.
It's about those unspoken dynamics, that subtle dance between speaking and listening.
Becoming a master communicator, not just with your words, but with your presence.
Absolutely. So if you haven't already, check out Negotiating for Dummies, second edition by Michael C. Donaldson.
You can find it on Amazon. The link's in the description below.
And don't forget to subscribe to One Book a Day on YouTube for more deep dives.
We're exploring a new book every week.
We'll see you next time for another insightful discussion.
Until then, happy negotiating.